Our gospel reading for this morning comes from the first chapter of Mark as we continue to hear of the beginning of Jesus' ministry, following healings and mass crowds. Jesus has taken his work out on the road when we hear what happens in today's reading. Listen now for what the Spirit would speak to us this day. A leper came to Jesus begging him, and kneeling he said to him, "If you choose, you can make me clean." Moved with pity, Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him, and said to him, "I do choose. Be made clean." Immediately the leprosy left him, and he was made clean. After sternly warning him, he sent him away at once, saying to him, "See that you say nothing to anyone, but go, show yourself to the priest, and offer for your cleansing what Moses commanded, as a testimony to them." But he went out and began to proclaim it freely, and to spread the word, so that Jesus could no longer go into a town openly, but stayed out in the country. And people came to him from every quarter. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
When our discipleship ministry team here began to discuss the possibility of having a Bring a Friend Sunday at Boulevard, I shared with them my experience from when we had done one in my previous congregation. Now, some of you may have heard this story before, but if so, please bear with us. Bring a Friend Sundays was an idea dreamed up many years ago to help churches that aren't so good at doing evangelism. The idea is to designate a special Sunday to invite people, with the thought that making it an event would make it easier for people to invite their friends. And with that in mind, very often something else is attached to this, like a luncheon after the worship. And that's what we did at my congregation back in Raleigh, North Carolina. We just had a single worship service, and so it was simple to have a lunch in the fellowship hall after the service that day. And that also made it easier, we hope, for people to say to friends, "Hey, we're having a big special Sunday where everybody's inviting their friends, and there's a big lunch afterward. Would you like to join us?" Now, when we did this in Raleigh the first time, the turnout was amazing. There may have been some Easters or Christmas Eve services where we had more people, but besides those, I had never seen that many people in the sanctuary. And the fellowship hall overflowed with people for the lunch following the service. And everyone who had been involved in the planning was all smiles. It had far exceeded our greatest expectations. But our excitement began to wane a bit when we started to look at those pew pads we had collected out of the sanctuary. It's not that people hadn't signed in. By and large, they had signed the pads. But along with writing their name down, most of them had added another bit of information, namely the name of the church where they were members. And it soon became apparent that nearly every single one of those friends who joined us for Bring a Friend Sunday was an active member of another church. And this was somewhat bewildering because we had made clear in publicizing the event that it was for the purposes of evangelism. So why was it that it had somehow turned into a fellowship Sunday with fellow church members? To be honest, I don't know precisely. I suppose that our members wanted to support the event. We had been talking about it for a couple of months, and I'm sure people wanted it to be a success, and they felt like they had to invite people. And here's where I'm not really sure what happened. Perhaps many of our members didn't have any non-church friends. I can see that being the case with some of them. Or perhaps they did have friends who were not church members, but for whatever reason they found it difficult to ask them to come, and so they invited church friends instead. Perhaps it was something else altogether. I really don't know. But clearly there was something going on that made it difficult for our members in that congregation to invite folks who weren't church members to join us some Sunday, even when they got a free lunch out of the deal. And this became abundantly clear when we held a second Bring a Friend Sunday the next year. Now, remembering our previous experience, we asked people, please don't invite people who are members of other congregations. Invite friends who are not participating in a church somewhere. And our members got the message. They did not invite church friends. And that Sunday, you could not tell that it was any different from any other Sunday because there were no extra people there. Now, if in fact we did have folks who didn't have any non-Christian friends, well, that would fit with a misperception that's out there in Christianity. There are a number of church folk who seem to have gotten the idea somewhere that Christians should not associate with non-Christians. Now, when you remember the sort of folks Jesus hung out with, and when you remember that he commanded his followers to reach out to all people to help them become disciples, you know, it's a little hard to reconcile being the body of Christ, or being part of the body of Christ, and then not associating with folks who are not part of the church. But I'm actually not convinced that was the main reason why almost no one invited a friend on our second Bring a Friend Sunday back in Raleigh. I think they were simply terrified at the notion of evangelism. It wasn't so scary to invite a church friend to come to a church service on Sunday, but to talk about their faith with someone who didn't do the church thing, well, that was another matter. Now, as a rule, Presbyterians, we struggle a bit with evangelism. We seem worried about starting a conversation that we might get in over our heads. Perhaps you've heard people say, perhaps you've even said yourself, what if they ask me a question I don't know the answer to? I don't understand my own faith well enough to share it with somebody. I don't know how to explain the Trinity. Now, I'm really not sure where the idea came from that you need to have a firm grasp of Christian doctrine in order to do evangelism. That's certainly not the case with the leper in our gospel reading this morning. He doesn't know any Christian doctrine. For that matter, he doesn't even know about the cross or the resurrection, namely because they haven't yet happened. But when Jesus heals him, he immediately goes out and began to proclaim what Jesus had done for him. Proclaim. That's the word used to describe what John the Baptist did and what Jesus has been doing and what Jesus will very soon command his 12 disciples to go out and do. And this former leper proclaims, even though Jesus has expressly commanded him not to say anything. Now, if someone comes up to him and asks him, well, now how exactly did Jesus heal you? He's not going to be able to answer them. If they want to know whether or not Jesus is the only way to be healed from leprosy, he won't know the answer to that either. And if people ask him what Jesus thinks about abortion or raising taxes on the rich, he likely will not have a clue what to say. But he does know that Jesus has touched him and made him new, made him well, made him whole, saved him. And he cannot stop going out and telling everyone what God has done for him through Jesus. Now, as a part of the run-up to our own Bring a Friend Sunday here next week, members of the discipleship team here at Boulevard have been sharing with folks some of their own experiences of a time when they were alone or afraid and someone reached out to connect with them. A couple of weeks ago, Jenny Octoman shared a time when she had encountered God's touch and God's care through someone. If you weren't here, she spoke of a time when she had just come home from the hospital following surgery. And her mother had come to care for her as she convalesced. But shortly after arriving, her mother began to experience such extreme pain that she asked to go to the hospital. But Jenny didn't feel in any sort of condition to take her to the hospital, and she wasn't yet cleared to drive in the first place. And as she was wondering what she should do, the phone rang. It was a woman from her church, a woman that Jenny scarcely knew. And that woman said that she had gotten the feeling that Jenny could use some help. And could she do anything? And that woman came over. She took Jenny's mother to the ER, and she waited there for several hours while the doctors attended to her. Now, certainly it doesn't rise quite to the level of being cured of leprosy. But at that moment, the woman who called was a lifesaver, a godsend to Jenny. And Jenny was able to share without any hesitation the experience of God's love that came to her when this woman reached out to minister to her in a moment of need. I don't think Jenny talked about any theological doctrines when she shared her story, and I'm sure she didn't mention any hot-button issues of the day. She simply proclaimed what God had done for her when this disciple of Christ had reached out to her in a time of need. Now, surely, every one of us has a similar story. A story to share, to proclaim. Surely the love of God has touched us at some point in a way that has changed us, set us free for a better life, allowed us to experience the compassion and love of Jesus' touch in a tangible, real way. It seems to me that if we cannot in any way share a time when Jesus touched us, then I'm not sure but what our Christianity is more of a philosophy than a faith. And if that is the case, well, perhaps it's no wonder that American church pews have less and less people in them who would want to come and sing hymns to a philosophy. Why offer prayers to an idea? Has Jesus touched you in some way at some time? Has Jesus used you to share His touch with someone else? Centuries ago, when a leper encountered Jesus' healing touch, he could not stop himself from letting folks know. Jesus says to him, "See that you say nothing to anyone." But he went out and began to proclaim it freely and to spread the word. Thanks be to God.